From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your afternoon update.
Ants Meats and Grocery is much more than a grocery store. We carry a full line of quality meats, local and organic vegetables, and a large variety of fish, Green Mountain Smart Control pellet grills, and a full deli case of sandwiches and side dishes.
Well, of course, we've got those clear skies out there for this Friday afternoon, and it looks like we're going to continue with that here, taking you pretty much through the afternoon and not to mention this weekend. Not much change going well into next week. These headlines haven't changed much either. Highs struggling to reach 100 degrees, although there is a point in time when I think around Monday, Tuesday of next week, we could be looking at the potential for some more triple-digit heat, but I'm talking about 100, 101, maybe 102 at tops in some areas, especially Redding and Red Bluff. And then no big heat waves or mountain thunderstorms in the forecast anytime soon, but we'll take a look at that potential for thunderstorms here in a second. Do want to just mention and talk about this fire weather watch. Now, we're going to probably see this change and kind of switch over at some point in time over to a red flag warning as we get closer to the time frame. So it's mainly for gusty winds and dry conditions. That's pretty normal. And in fact, I don't anticipate seeing any major wind events. But what we're going to do is take a look at why and what kind of criteria the Weather Service looks at when issuing these red flag warnings. Now, this is the same criteria for the fire weather watch. It's just that the difference in timing of when they're issued is what we're looking at here. So we're really focused on number one here, because number two, we're not really concerned about thunderstorms at this point. It's when you're expecting to see wind gusts of 25 miles per hour or higher for at least a 3-hour period and 15% or less with that humidity also within a 3-hour period. So the fire weather watch means that conditions or critical fire conditions are a possibility based on the forecast, at least out to about 72 hours. A red flag warning means that it's imminent, it's going to happen very shortly, or it's happening right now, and that you need to use extra caution when you're looking at those conditions and looking at, of course, any kind of fire weather. So we look at the fire outlook here for today, and it's within that elevated range in the typical spots we've seen the last few days. We're getting in that critical range simply because there's the potential for those winds to pick up. Now we look at the fire potential, and you see here for today, it's in the low risk. It's the yellows, right? Then we go into your Saturday, we're looking at a lot more brown on the map, indicating that there is a moderate risk. So again, the conditions are getting a little bit worse and a little less favorable for, say, fire conditions. So let's take a look at those winds. So here's today at noon. You can see those wind gusts, not that much of an issue. I mean, even as we go into the afternoon, the winds are picking up, and you can see these oranges and reds. I mean, you're going into the 30, 40 mile an hour range here, but that's over some of the higher mountain peaks, by the way. But there you can see, and this is nothing unusual. We've seen this all week long, where we've been looking at gusts on average around 25 miles per hour, give or take. And again, the key is how long will we see the event? So today, not much of an issue, but notice what happens as we go into Saturday. We're beginning to see some deeper reds in here. So what this is telling us is that, especially over some of the higher elevations, we are expected to see some pretty gusty winds out there. That's why there is that fire weather watch, which will probably eventually be a red flag warning here later on today. But there you can see gusts close to 30 miles per hour up in Modoc County, and that could even be the case out towards Susanville as well. So again, those winds are fairly strong. But look what happens as we go into Sunday. We're going to kind of take you all the way through Sunday afternoon. Not as many of those deep reds in there, so the wind's starting to die down again. So again, nothing unusual with the winds. Nothing terribly uncommon, and nothing really honestly terribly alarming, but the winds are ramping up a little bit here, especially for Saturday, and that's why we do have the elevated risk for fires. So if a fire should start under those conditions, they can spread very rapidly when it's dry out there and you've got those gusty winds. And the reason for those winds is right here. You see this swirl of low pressure right here? This is diving down closer to us, and that upper level pattern is going to help to kind of give us at the surface some of those gusty winds that we're expecting on Saturday. All right, so here's what we expect here for today. Much like yesterday, temperatures in the mid to upper 90s in the valley, and for the mountains, mainly in the upper 80s and some low 90s in there as well. Now, I want to talk about the potential for thunderstorms because I'm seeing a little bit of potential out there. We'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's take you through next Wednesday. So next Wednesday, we're seeing some high and mid-level clouds come in. This is the monsoon moisture. And this is what's going to make it feel a bit more muggy out there as we go into the middle of next week. Notice the thunderstorms just off to our south and east. Now, as we go into Thursday, Friday of next week, we're seeing some potential in our area, especially in the southern Cascades and northern Sierra, and in particular, off into southeastern Oregon. That's too close for comfort, especially when we're looking out this far. So it's not entirely out of the question for us to maybe start to see some high base thunderstorms developing here off into the northeastern portions of California. Now, this is starting next Wednesday through the end of next week. We'll watch that. We'll keep a close eye on that, and I'll certainly keep you informed as we get closer to that time frame. In the meantime, enjoy these cooler temperatures. I mean, look at this, mid to upper 90s in the valley and in the 80s for many of us in the higher elevations. We look at that 7-day outlook, and what we're seeing here are temperatures in the upper 80s for the most part in the higher elevations. There are going to be a few days, especially going into early next week, that we are at least going to get into the low 90s. Now, for the valley, we're going to struggle to reach that triple digit mark, especially for places like Chico. In fact, Chico, I don't have any triple digits for you at all in the next 7 days. But for Redding, Red Bluff, yeah, maybe around Monday, maybe even Tuesday of next week before we see another slight dip in our temperatures by the middle to latter part of next week.